Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Digital Nomad Mastery, the podcast where we teach you how to travel around the world while making an income or multiple streams of income. So we interview guests from around the world. We just got off an interview with someone in Africa. We've been covering Asia, South America, Europe, North America. The only guest we haven't had yet is someone from Antarctica. So any of our listeners, if you know any Antarctican digital nomads, let us know. We'd love to get them on the show. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us a rating and review. That really helps us get up the ranking. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on all the social media as well. So on this episode, we have the joy of interviewing a traveling digital nomad couple, Betsy and Peter. And they actually left their hometown of Minnesota to travel around the U.S. and beyond. So they've actually been to Sochi for the Olympics there, the Winter Olympics. Now they're actually house sitting near Santa Barbara, California. And on this episode, we'll be learning a little bit about why they decided to sell everything to travel the world, about how they generate income as they travel, and any experience and insights about traveling. So how are you guys doing over there in California today?
Great.
Quite wonderful.
Sunny and warm. We love it.
Sunny and warm is a good thing. Scott and myself, we're from Vancouver, BC, Canada, where it's not always sunny and warm. It's usually rainy and cloudy. So I can see, I can tell that Scott is in the sunny area in Croatia, and I'm actually in French Guiana, heading to Suriname after this interview. So we're all in sunny areas as we speak. And hopefully you listening are also in a sunny area, or you're heading to one as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you a little brief overview, a synopsis, but maybe you can share with the listeners and viewers a little bit about your digital nomad journey.
Should I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we met and married in Minnesota in 2006. We just celebrated our 11th wedding anniversary. And when we married, we realized, unfortunately, or fortunately, as it turned out, that we weren't going to be able to have a traditional retirement for a variety of reasons. And so we cast about looking for income-producing activities that we could do together and that would also serve us were we going to become, as we became older, maybe we wouldn't be more mobile, that sort of thing. And so it seemed as though working online was the perfect answer to supplementing and then eventually replacing income. We had become intrigued by the idea of location independence, and we achieved that about 3 years into our journey. We started off working with print-on-demand companies, and Pete had made a political bumper sticker just as a kind of a joke in 2008, and surprisingly it started to sell very well. And so we sort of noticed that and figured, well, maybe another bumper sticker would sell. And since then, what are we up to? About 100,000 products, maybe?
Yeah.
Print on demand. And in the interim also, we established other revenue streams, which include publishing our own ebooks. I've written some real books in the self-help genre, and so we've got those for sale on Amazon. We've monetized our travel blog in a variety of ways, including in-kind work with destinations and accommodations and that sort of thing. But also we do advertising, sales, and individual client work for that. So we've got a lot of spokes in the wheel, I guess you'd say, after so many years of doing this. And we tested things out in 2011 when Pete finally quit his day job, and we did a series of road trips. And then it sold everything in Minnesota and moved to the beautiful state of Hawaii, the Garden Island of Kauai. And then decided to go completely nomadic after a fateful trip to the Sochi Olympics in Russia in 2014. So our kids think we're nuts, and A lot of, I mean, we're those people, crazy ones, and I guess we wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, hey, part of the Digital Nomad Mastery community is being part of that crazy tribe of people who have left everything, sold it all to travel, to follow their dreams, to travel the world, and we're loving it. These aren't fake smiles. We're really loving this journey, traveling around the world, homeschooling our kids. And a lot of people have regrets. And one of the top regrets of the dying is, I wish I'd followed my dreams. I wish I'd traveled more. And I wish I'd been more courageous. And I think to sell it all, to travel the world, to go to Sochi, to live in Hawaii, to do homesteading is definitely courageous. So good on you guys for following your dreams.
Good. Thank you.
I want to jump in with a question because I was on your blog, on your site, which happens to be passingthrough.com. Just give you a little plug there. And I spent 3 weeks in Sicily just 2 or 3 months ago, had a phenomenal time. I just thought the place was spectacular. The people were friendly. The food was great. And of course, before I went to Sicily, I was thinking of the mafia, and people don't seem to talk very nicely about it. Even the Italians sort of, and it was just totally like the opposite of what I was expecting. And you happen to have on your blog, and it's only like a month ago that you posted this, visit these 4 places in Sicily to have a mind-blowing vacation. So tell us a little bit about your experience in Sicily.
Well, that was actually a guest post. And surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, I don't know, we tend to wind up in places that we've never heard of, as opposed to places that, that you should go as a traveler. So we've never actually set foot in Italy. So that was a guest post, and I thought it was a really complimentary post because we didn't have any personal experience there, but we've got a lot of readers who like to visit Italy, and Sicily isn't necessarily the first place that people think of to go.
But the ruins there are amazing, and the food was spectacular.
Yeah, I think the closest we've got to Sicily is actually we could have waved at it across the ocean from Majorca.
Oh, nice.
Which is one of the places that we ended up going that we never really even knew existed. We were on our way from Fiji to Spain, I believe, and we had some time to kill because we were on our way to a convention of travel bloggers, and this just kind of popped up because we had a timeshare exchange, and so we ended up going to Majorca, and it was really one of the most wonderful times we've had anywhere in the world.
I'm really interested in your journey to Sochi, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are. A lot of us watched the Sochi Olympics and heard all about the controversy that was happening in Russia around the time. So maybe you can share a little bit about an insider's glimpse into what happened in Sochi, what brought you there, and some of your impressions.
Oh, well, a lot of times we get this bright idea, and when we moved to Hawaii, it was January of 2013, and so we're sitting there on Kauai, and Pete had said before we moved, and I'd forgotten about it in all of the chaos, that he wanted to go to the Winter Olympics. And if you know anything about the Olympics, you know that the ticket sales start like a year before the event, and it's really a matter of jumping on the website and clicking those buttons and just sorting out the details later. And so we had just moved to Kauai, and we were on the website early in the morning, and we clicked on a few buttons and bought a few event tickets, and were shocked at how expensive the stuff we actually wanted to see was, and didn't click those buttons. And then we just sort of forgot about it. And then it was like, oh my God, where is it? Where is that? I guess we'd better figure this out. So while I was researching flights from Kauai to Europe, I was starting to get really discouraged because, as you might imagine, getting anywhere in the world from Hawaii is kind of a financial challenge, not just time-wise and everything. And so it appeared as though we were going to have to really bite a financial bullet in order to get ourselves over there. And then I encountered one of those package deals. And it was a week in Ireland with a rent-a-car, 2 nights in castles, and the rest in B&Bs, and including airfare for the same price as it was going to cost us to go to Munich. And it's like, oh, well, all of a sudden we're going to be in Ireland for a week, and so we're going to have to figure out how to get to Russia from Ireland. And so then we decided, well, let's go by land. That'll be fun. And so it turned into like this epic journey on Eurail all across Europe. And I think we only stopped when we got to Romania. And then there was a little bit of a thing going on in the Ukraine that you might remember at that time. And we had originally planned to take the train across the Ukraine. And we decided, no, you know what, I think we better fly over the Black Sea at this point. And there was a lot of controversy around those Olympics. There were security concerns. We were going to all be blown up by Chechen terrorists.
One of the toilets didn't work, and
yeah,
everything was going on.
Yeah, everything. And it really started me on a journey of understanding in terms of how the media has an agenda and for whatever the reason wants to manipulate your thinking, because we encountered none of that. Yes, there was an increased security presence there, and rightfully so. I mean, the Russians were definitely not having any shenanigans occur on this opportunity to showcase their country in front of the world. And so, yes, there were military ships in the Black Sea around Sochi. You could see them from the shore. And yes, along the route to the Alpine events, there were armed security stationed like every 20 to 25 feet. They brought in Cossacks. And I don't know if you know the Cossacks, but they're a tribe, and they're very known for their warrior tradition. And so, man, I was taking pictures of those guys right and left, but honestly, everything in terms of our experience went off without a hitch. We chose not to stay in the Disneyland environment associated with the Olympic areas. We stayed in a little guest house in a neighborhood where Russians go to holiday on the Black Sea. We were welcomed. Nobody really spoke a lot of English where we were staying. It didn't matter. The night we got there, it was opening ceremonies, and in 15 minutes, we were throwing back shots of vodka with the guys at the next table. So it was a marvelous, marvelous experience. And, there were a few hoops to jump through in terms of getting the visa and that sort of thing. But, man, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
I'm so glad you went there. I haven't met anyone else who's been to the Sochi Olympics. So what was it like in terms of the reality compared to the media perception? You kind of teased on it a little bit, but how accurate was it in terms of the media portrayal of it internationally?
Well, I have no doubt that the media found instances where the doorknob didn't work, or something was improperly installed, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that all of that stuff was made up, but I will say that it was our impression that were those issues to be present, that they were minor. I mean, this was a magnificent feat of engineering, particularly in the Alpine venue, where they literally had to blast away part of the mountains and construct a community maybe on the equivalent of Aspen and Breckenridge combined out there to accommodate all of the influx of people and the services and the security issues and all of this back and forth. And they did a monumental job. I mean, everything ran like clockwork. The transportation was beautiful. All of the hubs, all of the transportation was free in and around Sochi for that time period. And it was a magnificent venue because the Black Sea venues, you know, where the indoor arena events were, like the skating and everything, that was right on the waterfront, and it's almost a tropical environment. I mean, we were walking around in palm trees. And then 45 minutes later, you're up in the mountains and, you know, you're in the snow. So I think the hype was overblown. I think in many cases the media was looking for problems, you know, and nothing is ever perfect, but man, we had as close to a perfect experience that we ever could have imagined.
Amazing. I definitely want to, you know, learn more. So, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do. So make sure you connect with them. I'm sure they have a few blog posts on passingthrough.com as well about their Sochi Olympic experience. So transitioning over to the area of house sitting, which you're currently doing now, you're actually in California. And a lot of our listeners are probably interested in that area as well. You know, that's something I definitely would like to do more of. So maybe you can share about how you got into house sitting, where have you done your house sitting, what platforms you use, and a little bit of your experience as a house sitter or as house sitters.
Well, when we got back from Sochi, we decided that we wanted to be traveling a lot more, or maybe even full-time, kind of doing what we did on that particular trip, and decided that we'd have to get rid of what little we had in Hawaii and then hit the road. But we're not very well-to-do, we're not very rich, and so we had to figure out how we're going to make this work with a little amount of money. And house sitting seemed to be a very logical concept for us, because you can stay for free, so you have no cost for accommodation. And when we were looking online at one of the sites that brings house sitters and homeowners together, we came across one in Fiji, which is actually not that far from Hawaii. And it turns out that we were their first choice, simply because they were looking for somebody who had experience in maintaining a house in a tropical environment, which of course we did, being in Hawaii. So our first house sit was in Fiji for 2 months. And so we went from one paradise to another. And we've come to really love Fiji. We love the people there, and of course the weather and everything is very nice. And we ended up house sitting at this particular location 3 more times during the course of a couple of years. We've become very close friends with the homeowners, and think of their 2 Dobermans as our grand dogs.
Yeah.
You know, Pete, you make a great point that actually in one of our previous podcast episodes, someone made a similar point, in that as you're doing the house sitting, you develop a relationship with the owners, and they don't just go once, they go, you know, often, and then it becomes like, well, here's a place where we'll go to Fiji whenever we want, almost, right? And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's not really free. I kind of hesitate at describing it as free because there's a value exchange involved. You know,
Yes.
We're acting as the homeowner's surrogate, and so there are responsibilities. And I wouldn't want to give people the impression that you know, that it, once you get there, it said like, hey, you know, an umbrella drink and sit me by the pool, because the very first day at that particular house, that the property was threatened by a bushfire. And so there we are out there with the garden hose, you know? And later in a subsequent visit, it was Cyclone Winston. And so we were making hurricane prep, and we actually weathered that Category 5 storm in that house and kept the property secure, and fortunately little damage. So, but it is.
That's a great point, Betsy, because it's not a holiday. You are basically, like you said, you're replacing the homeowner, you're responsible, you're looking after the house, there's work to be done. And, so I'm curious, is there a particular website that you prefer when you're looking at house sitting?
Well, we belong to a variety of sites, and we're just kind of on the cusp, because we've been at this for several years now, of obtaining all of our sits, or the majority of them, are repeat or referral, but not quite. And so, you know, this is kind of our business, and, you know, other people may view it differently, but we belong to a variety of sites. Trusted House Sitters is the largest. And as you might imagine, because it's so big, there's a lot of competition for sits.
Yes.
So it becomes a matter of marketing yourself effectively, obtaining those positive references, and showcasing your skills and experience in order to make a good match. But there are several other good platforms out there that are regional in nature. The first Fiji sit came from a platform called housecarers.com. C-A-R-E-R-S, carers. I guess that's kind of a Brit word. I don't know. But, you know, so you can poke around, and if you have geographic desires, you know, there's Facebook groups of expats and that sort of thing. So that, you know, there's a lot of ways to get into the community of homeowners and house sitters. And there's also a credential that we recommend called the House Sitting Academy. And that's a course designed by a couple of friends of ours. And it's not so much learning everything that they've put in there, which is really comprehensive, but it's knowing that you have that resource to refer to should a situation occur where you're looking for a reference, that sort of thing.
I think there's a link on our website to that.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Getting just to touch a little bit on marketing and promoting yourself. When we were in Fiji, we did a video to kind of introduce ourselves to prospective homeowners, and most of the sites you'll find let you post a video up there. And also we've got a tab in on our website that is about house sitting, and includes a lot more information about who we are and our experience.
So you're currently in California, you've been to Hawaii, Russia, etc. So where is next? Where do you see yourself in the next few years of long-term travel?
Well, you know, when we first started this nomadic life, it was in September of 2014. And our daughter had recently got engaged, and they had set the wedding date for September of 2016. And so that was our end date. We just figured, oh, we're just going to travel everywhere, all around, and, you know, until the wedding, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do. Well, last September was the wedding and everything, and it's like, well, now what are we going to do? It's like, well, let's keep doing what we're doing. And so we really don't have an end game in sight, and this sit is probably the longest, about 5 months here in Santa Barbara. We're going to be done with that sit, and we kind of have nothing after that. And early in the journey, that would have made us a little more nervous than we currently are. We've learned to trust the universe, that opportunities will present themselves, and whether we stay in the US or whether we go back to Europe, it's kind of all up in the air at this point. And it's wonderful to have that freedom. It's not necessarily something that a lot of people are comfortable with, but we kind of like dancing on that edge a little bit.
That's wonderful. I really love to hear that, because a lot of my journey the last 4 months, 5 months since I left Canada has been, well, I'm going that way. And then, no, I ended up going that way. And then I actually ended up over there. So the flexibility is interesting, but also the opportunity. And I really like what I'm hearing about the house sitting, because that's not a way that I'm using to travel. And I actually had kind of given up on it, but you and a couple of our other guests have convinced me that it's just, I'm not doing what I should be doing in order to be attracting the right homes that I want to house sit in, because I think that's like a big part of why I want to travel is I want to be able to be part of the community, the local community, long enough to have an understanding of what it's like. And everywhere people are wonderful and they're beautiful, and that's definitely not a theme that shows up on our news at all. And I think we all need to be reminded of that. So,
and that's a good point. When we do look for house sits, we look for a longer type of a stay, so that generally we'd like to be somewhere for at least 4 weeks. And if there's extensive travel involved to get to where we're going, and in other words, some significant costs in travel, why we want to stay even longer. And when we were in Minnesota for the wedding and a little bit more, and then we had hooked up for this 5-month house sit, but we had 4 months in between, and so we just kind of house sat our way down to California, and we spent a couple of months in Denver, which was wonderful, and I think we spent a month and a half in Arizona, and so it was a very easy transition to get down here.
The other thing I'm going to point out too is that the interesting part to me in all of this, and we kind of touched on that initially, is that we wind up in places that we've never even heard of, much less figured we'd be going. And so if we need to make a visa run in Australia, for example, we jumped up to Malaysia. Was Malaysia ever on my radar? Never. Or house sitting in Toowoomba, Australia. I've never heard of Toowoomba. What? So the serendipitous aspect of all of this is really interesting to me. And, no, we haven't been to Italy. That's usually the first place that people go. But, but
And you tricked me. You had a blog post about it. And,
yeah. But we've house sat in China. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. And I think your reference to you just need to be open, and the universe will just present you with opportunity after opportunity if you're willing to take the risk.
That's right. Well, thank you very, very much, Pete and Betsy, for being on the show with us. We really appreciate everything that you've shared, and we appreciate you. And I think I can speak for Ricky and myself. It's always nice to have two friends, and we want to invite you to come back again. We'll, because we want to learn more of what you're up to and where you've been. And but if somebody wants to know more about some of the stuff that you're doing right now, and how can they get a hold of you, or how can they find you online?
Well, the easiest place to find us is on our travel blog, and that's passingthrough.com. And, we're in all the usual places with the usual suspects on social media. We're on Facebook individually and Passing Through as a page there, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, but there's a contact form on the website, passingthrough.com, and we'd love to hear from anybody with anything.
Well, some amazing insights about traveling around the world. I love all your stories as well. You guys are amazing storytellers. And, you know, we've heard it in verbal and visual form. Make sure you read about the stories, too, on their blog. The website, once again, is passingthrough.com, spelled THRU, not the other way. So passing through. And make sure you get the courses. They have quite a few different courses about Zazzle, and they have some ebooks as well. So if you're interested in how they make money while traveling the world, they're a great example that your dreams can come true, that you can work online, and you can house it around the world like they are doing. So we look forward to reconnecting in a future episode. And thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And aloha.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and share with us your travel stories. We'll see you in the next episode.